Okay, I guess it's 3 p.m. European Central Time. The meeting you all have been waiting for, I guess, of today. So thanks a lot for joining our webinar on behalf of Heraeus Precious Metals. It's my true pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on optimizing precious metal catalysts for FineChem and pharma applications. Yeah, my name is Dominik Schwärzel. I'm Global Head of Sales for Heterogeneous Catalysts, and I will basically moderate our webinar as of today. I will introduce my two colleagues, Arthur and Detlef, in just a second. Before I do this, I just wanted to guide you through our housekeeping notes. The webinar will approximately take up to 50 minutes to 1 hour. So at the end, for sure, we will have some time for questions. Of course, the presentation will be downloadable after the webinar. The link will be provided for this. This webinar will be recorded. All attendees are muted by default. Questions can be submitted via the chat box function at any time, and they will basically be addressed at the end of the presentation. Due to data protection policy, we are not allowed to address any specific individuals. And for the best audio quality, please use your headset. Of course, if there are any issues with internet connection, please dial in. Yeah, and with that, it's my true pleasure to introduce the two colleagues that are with me here on my side, starting with Arthur. Arthur is a global technical sales manager for heterogeneous catalysts at Heraeus Precious Metals since 2022. He's a chemist and worked on the development of heterogeneous catalysts already during his PhD at the Technical University of Darmstadt. Also with us today is Detlef. Detlef is a senior technical sales manager for homogeneous PGM catalysts since 2018 already. He's also a chemist with a PhD in metal organic compounds from the University of Cologne. Yeah, the learning goals of this webinar are split in three. First, we will talk about advances in homogeneous PGM catalysis, supplying industrial volumes of palladium-based phosphines, and designing also new phosphine ligands for challenging CN couplings. Second, we will introduce the toolbox for the development of efficient heterogeneous catalysts. We will look at the impact of the precious metal precursor. We will look at the impact of the catalyst carrier, as well as the synthesis method used in the manufacturing process of precious metal-based catalysts. And we also brought a showcase. We will introduce our Hera Select portfolio, which are precious metal catalysts on activated carbon. And last but not least, as you all know, precious metal catalysts are quite expensive. So recycling is super crucial. And at Heraeus Precious Metals, we are not only experts in designing precious metals, but also in recycling such, and thereby we close the loop. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the life cycle assessment and the recyclability of precious metal catalysts. Yeah, starting maybe with a little introduction, at least of Heraeus and Heraeus Precious Metals. As you can see, we also produce these nice gold, platinum, or silver bars, which is the only products we really sell to individuals. Other than that, we only operate in B2B environment. Heraeus is a family name. The special thing about our company is that it's still family owned for more than 160 years by obviously the Heraeus family. We are quite large as we're making almost 30 billion euros in sales. We have more than 100 sites in 40 countries with 20 different operating companies. We spend more than 5% of our sales and R&D expenditures, have 17,000 people, and are basically with that one of the 10 biggest family-owned companies in Germany. The number one thing that is special about Heraeus Precious Metals is that we are only active in precious metals. And with that, we listed here all the metals that we are active in. So we work in gold, silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, ruthenium, iridium, and osmium. And as you can see, there's quite a little diversity in the volumes that are available. So, for example, with platinum, we have approximately 225 tons available, palladium a little bit more, gold much more, rhodium only a tenth with 30 tons, ruthenium in a similar range. A specialty metal like iridium is only available for primary supply about 8 tons per year, particularly important for the upcoming hydrogen economy. And what we also show on this slide is not only the total annual production, but we also show the recycling share of such. And as we can already see, for certain metals, there seem to be quite efficient routes already. For example, here, when we look at rhodium at the bottom of this page, with 45% share in recycling. So our company is further focusing on increasing this share, so that also low carbon offerings in terms of metal supply can be offered to our clients going forward. Yeah, so we not only deal with pure metals, because obviously the key expertise of our company is to convert these precious metals into a variety of different applications for a variety of different markets. Chemical sector comes at no surprise, because today we have a seminar for chemicals, fine chemicals basically, and pharmaceuticals. We are a player in the automotive sector, in semiconductors, and of course also in the luxury industry, which at the end then has nothing to do with chemistry, as it is more a mechanical product, but also a few product examples. So we produce homogeneous catalysts or precious metal precursors. We use them to produce own full heterogeneous catalyst systems, which can, for example, also be emission catalyst systems, or products that we sell into the hydrogen economy, like electrolyzer or fuel cell catalysts. We provide semi-finished products for the luxury industry, functional materials like tubes, crucibles, rods, or wires made out of precious metals. We are active in the pharma space through the production of pharmaceutical ingredients, mainly containing platinum for anti-cancer treatment. And then we also operate in the field of precious metal coatings, which is more market for the Middle East, or also if you go to Oktoberfest and have a nice gold ring around your beer cup, then it's very likely that it uses a gold color from Heraeus Precious Metals. We have a very, very strong sustainability focus within our company, with very, very harsh goals. So the goal is already since 2019 to be carbon neutral for scope 1 and 2 by 2025 already. By then we will move to 100% green electricity. And by 2033, we will turn away completely from fossil fuels and will be net zero in terms of GHG emissions. Yeah, our products itself are already quite sustainable in many different applications. So because when we look in our service portfolio, recycling precious metals is a sustainable offering that we have. What we see is that the carbon footprint of these metals can be reduced significantly by more than 98% compared to metals that come from primary sources. We also are always interested in producing catalysts that achieve higher performance within the process. And by higher performance, our definition also says that energy consumption can be reduced, that there is a longer lifetime or a higher yield of desired product. Through our offerings in the hydrogen space, we have precious metal catalysts, particularly for PEM technology within electrolyzers and fuel cells. Another example is, for example, catalysts that we supply into the replacement of fossil resources. So we have designed a new product line which particularly focuses on the conversion of biomass feedstocks. I already mentioned at the beginning that we also play in the field of emissions, and one very harmful emission is N2O, which is a result out of the Oswald ammonia oxidation process. And for this process, we have particularly designed a fixed bed catalyst as an N2O abatement system. Furthermore, we also have a classical freeway catalyst, and we are a world market leader for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and off-road applications, and hereby help for NOx and CO abatement in particular. Then the newly developed product is our trademark AGXX, which is a newly developed silver and ruthenium antimicrobial product, which, for example, can be used on textiles. With that, Detlef, I hand over to you.
Yeah, Dominic, thank you very much for this introduction. I will take over the part for the homogeneous precious metal catalysts, and I want to show you a few examples where we serve the FineChem and pharma synthesis. But first, let me come to some basics. Of course, we at Heraeus deal with all the precious metal salts, as Dominic already mentioned, but we also, let's say, we provide more or less the full variety of inorganic salts that you can imagine coming from these metals. You can see many chlorides, nitrates, ammonium chlorides, and so on here. And why do I mention this? These salts are also the starting materials for our colleagues that make the heterogeneous catalysts. And Arthur, in the second part, will come back to these valuable sources where we can offer different salts as starting materials, so where we can offer quite a broad variety of precious metal solutions. In my part, I want to focus on the homogeneous catalysts. As you may all know, precious metal catalysts can come in heterogeneous form. That means the precious metal is fixed on maybe a carbon or an alumina carrier, or it can come as a homogeneous catalyst. So that means the molecule, most of the times it's a metal-organic molecule, is soluble in the same solution as the reaction takes place. And here I have focused on 3 examples. Of course, you can use the homogeneous precious metal catalyst based on iridium, rhodium, or ruthenium. For asymmetric hydrogenations, that means you can make only one, or let's say a surplus of one of the favorable enantiomers that you want to make. And this chiral information is entered into the system by the choice of the ligand that you attach to the precious metal. You can use osmium for dihydroxylation. That means you can in one step add 2 OH groups to a double bonding. This is a relatively exotic reaction, but it comes in very useful when you want to make hormone-like structures. And what I want to focus particularly on today is the possibility of carbon-carbon or carbon-nitrogen coupling reactions, which are based on homogeneous palladium catalysts. I mentioned it shortly, asymmetric hydrogenation. There's a very, let's say, very famous example, the S-metolachlor, which is a corn pesticide. And in the past, people used the racemic mixture, so they had both the S and the R enantiomer in the mixture. But over time, the synthesis was developed further and further, and people found out that the S enantiomer is the one which is really active. And if you can find a synthesis where you only make the S enantiomer, you can of course lower the loading on the field, so you need much less of the substance, which is good for the environment. And here comes in the iridium COD complex, and you add this with the Josephus ligand, which contains the chiral information. And it's incredible how effective this process has become. So for the hydrogenation of an intermediate, the so-called MEA-imine precursor, you need only a few grams of the iridium COD-Cl for hydrogenating in this S enantiomer direction about 10 tons of the precursor. And of course, on the one hand side, we see this with a weeping eye. People do use less iridium, but on the other hand, we are completely clear that this is a fantastic example of the efficiency of precious metal catalysts shown here. The dihydroxylations with osmium I mentioned shortly. There's this so-called upjohn dihydroxylation, and there's also an enantioselective variation, the so-called sharpless dihydroxylation. The basic principle is that you add 2 hydroxyl groups at the same time, In the past, this has been mostly done with osmium tetroxide. Osmium tetroxide is not very easy to handle, so now we are happy to have a different salt, the potassium osmate, which creates the osmium tetroxide in situ and which is easier to handle. And like I mentioned already, you can use this kind of reaction for making hormone-like structure, e.g. here in this artificial estatol, which is used in contraceptives. So now I want to come to the main part of my talk. I want to talk about the CC coupling reactions, and I want to start with a quite famous example, the ibuprofen synthesis. The old synthesis was 7 steps long, had an atom efficiency of about 40%, and didn't use any precious metal catalysts. So you can see it was a relatively long chain. Atom efficiency was not very good, and this changed completely when a new synthesis was found, which makes use of palladium. Now you only need 3 steps, have an atom efficiency of 77%, and this has drastically shortened the synthesis for ibuprofen, and it has also made it much more environmentally friendly because you do not need so much solvents and side products and so on. One of the workhorses for introducing palladium into a reaction is still the palladium acetate. I think it is up till now probably the most popular palladium salt. It is very often combined in situ with phosphine ligands, which have the chiral information or whatever you want to do with the reaction. We are now happy to offer to be able to offer 2 grades of palladium acetate, a technical grade which has about 2% of nitrogen, and a pharmaceutical grade which has less than 1% nitrogen. And we developed this for pharma synthesis so that there are no nitrites or nitrates available in order to avoid any nitrosamine problems down the synthesis chain or in the end products. Yeah, CC and CEN coupling reaction with the, let's say, the classical palladium catalyst. The basic idea is shown here. You need a boronic acid as ester on one hand side. On the other hand side, you need an halogen like the bromine. You combine the 2 halves of a molecule to make a larger, more complicated molecule, and this is the direct establishment of a CC bond. And this was the holy grail of chemistry until 20, 30 years ago, when these kind of coupling reactions were discovered. And they are all based on homogeneous palladium catalysts. And there's a whole variety depending on the substituents and or on the substrates which you want to use. And this was really a breakthrough. There was a Nobel Prize for the 3 gentlemen who developed this. And this has enabled synthetic chemists to make much more elegant synthesis for complex molecules, which were very hard to make before this. And this is what we are offering now. This looks like I have stolen the curry collection of our local Indian restaurant, but what we see here is the different palladium phosphine complexes, which can be used for the variety of the coupling reactions. And you can see the coupling reactions here. They all have their own distinct names for the gentlemen who discovered them. I think the most common ones are probably the Suzuki and the Stiller couplings, Heck couplings. Those are all the CC coupling reactions where you can establish a direct carbon-carbon bond. And quite an important variation is the Buchwald-Hardwick coupling, where you can establish a direct carbon-nitrogen bond, which is quite important for heterocyclic compounds, which are very often part of the APIs of the active pharmaceutical ingredients. You can see a row of different phosphines which can be used for these kind of reactions, and we are able to help you with quite a variety depending on whatever reaction you want to use. Now, those were the let's say the well-known phosphines, which were already known to the community, but which were maybe not available in, let's say, in a larger volume, but which are now available in kg volumes from us. But we also wanted to try something new, and we also developed our own phosphine ligand together with the University of Munich. And you can see here the special feature of this ligand is that it contains not only the phosphine but also a silicon, and this silicon pushes the electrons to the phosphor and influences the electronic surroundings of the precious metal, which is in this case added as a palladium DBA complex. And with the help of this ligand, we can now show that we can make CN couplings, which were not so easy feasible before. You can have these systems where you have quite a lot of nitrogen in the rings, and the conditions for the reaction have become much milder, and the yields have become much better. So this is compared to a bulky phosphine ligand. So it's not only the bulkiness, it's definitely also an electronic influence of the silicon, which pushes the electrons into the system. At the moment, we have the ligand, and we add the palladium as the palladium DBA, but we are still doing research on this. And of course, we hope to be able to offer a ready-to-use palladium complex, which already contains the new subphosphine ligand. And with this, I already come to the end of my part and hand over to my colleague Arthur. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Detlef, for taking us on a journey through homogeneous catalysis at Heraeus. Now I'm going to continue with the heterogeneous part. So in the next minutes, I'm going to present a development process of a heterogeneous precious metal catalyst and show you also some kind of toolbox for the catalyst development, where I want to show how different process parameters and also different ingredients in this recipe or process can or may affect the final catalyst quality and also the catalytic activity of the product. So similar to the homogeneous catalyst, Heraeus offers also heterogeneous catalysts. And these catalysts can be used, for example, for the production of agrochemicals, fine chemicals, pharmaceutical ingredients, and so on. And this is possible both in the batch mode, so for this especially powder catalysts are useful, but also useful in the or can be applied in continuous or flow processes, and therefore bulky catalysts can be used. On the other hand, we also offer catalysts for gas purification purposes, and also are able to offer like catalysts with special applications. So for example, our catalysts can be also used, so customized catalysts can be used in household equipment, and even some of our catalysts find their way into space where they can be used for satellite propulsion purposes. But without further ado, let's jump in this development process of a heterogeneous precious metal catalyst. And you can note that this is basically a really simplified sketch of this process, so with high level information, but you can imagine it as some kind of a cooking pot. And just as for cooking, you need ingredients. And the main ingredients for a heterogeneous precious metal catalyst are a support material and a precious metal precursor. And in order to mix them both, we have to perform some kind of synthesis method or loading method so that we end up with a catalyst that can look like this. So depending on the loading method, we can achieve different types of distribution of the metal nanoparticles that are in the end responsible for the catalytic activity of the product. So for example, on the right-hand side, we see like a homogeneously or evenly distributed particle where the precious metal sits basically all around the support material. On the other side, we are also able to obtain eggshell and egg yolk type catalysts. And in this picture, you can see a really nice example of an eggshell type catalyst where the precious metal basically sits on the outer shell of the particle. So we slice it open here in the middle, and you can see the nice shell. And this is basically the accessible surface area for the substrate where it reacts. But let's break this process down a bit. So explaining it step by step. So first of all, the main ingredient one, the support material, this is also, so the choice of this material is already quite crucial when it comes to the final catalytic activity. And as already mentioned, we can produce powder catalysts, but for batch reactions, but also bulky catalysts for continuous reactions. And in addition to that, there are also like honeycomb structures that can be loaded with precious metal. So you can already see we have a broad variety that we can choose from. And basically these support materials come in all shapes, forms, geometries, and sizes. But not only the geometry is an important parameter here, but also the type of support material itself. So Detlef already mentioned activated carbon catalysts. So this is probably one of the most common support materials, but also alumina is quite famous. But not only that, we can also use different support materials like titanium dioxide, hydrotelside, zeolites, and so on. And as you can already see, the type of support material has also different physical properties. For example, the activated carbon supports have or exhibit significantly higher specific BET surface areas in comparison to titanium dioxide, for example. And also activated carbon is like a kind of inert material. But if your process needs a catalyst that has more basic or acidic sites, then maybe activated carbon is not the right choice and you have to switch to another support material. And recently we get more and more requests from our customers that already obtained a powder catalyst from us, but want to have the same catalyst to make it applicable in a continuous reactor. And therefore they need like shaped catalysts. But it's not that easy to bridge this gap because we have to change the support material in order to do so. And this is basically a completely new catalyst development. But for that, to bridge this gap, we can use a specialized new carbon support material, which is called carbon microspheres. And based on this, we are able to produce really robust and mechanically stable catalysts on these microspheres that can be used both in batch processes and also in continuous flow processes. Okay, moving forward to the second main ingredient here of this process, so the precious metal precursor. I think there's not that much to add because Detlef already covered the topic, but going back to this slide with the common precious metal solutions and precursors, we can see that we can choose from a variety of different precious metal precursors here. And also this choice leads to completely different behavior of the catalyst in the end. So this influences the interaction between the precious metal nanoparticle and the support material, for example, and also affects the dispersion of the precious metals on the support. And not only the ones that I mentioned here can be used, you can choose from a lot more. So these are just the most common ones. And one advantage at the Heraeus site in Hanau, so with the precious metal infrastructure that we have here, is that we can directly obtain these kind of precious metal salts and solutions and use it directly in order to develop a heterogeneous precious metal catalyst. So moving to the next step, so the synthesis method, there are also some different kinds that can be used or performed. So I want to just highlight two of the most common ones, the adsorption method and the impregnation. So first of all, the adsorption method, as you can see, this process basically starts with the big cooking pot that I mentioned in the beginning, which is filled with the main ingredients, so the support material and also the precious metal precursor. But in addition to that, of course, also other substances and chemicals are added there to make this process work. And also the process can be adjusted regarding its process parameters. So for example, temperature, stirring speed, solvent, pressure, all of these things affect the final properties of the catalyst. So and after this cooking process, let's call it like this, the product is then filtrated, washed, dried, and can also be reduced, for example, in this with forming gas in this case. And by the end of this process, of course, the homogenization step is important, especially for powder catalysts, because we have to make sure that every sample of a production batch basically has the same water as well as precious metal content. So the second most common synthesis method is the impregnation method, and this does not start with the cooking pot, but in this case we have a rotating basket or vessel that is filled with the support material and then subsequently impregnated with the precious metal precursor. And also here we can vary the rotation speed, the temperature, the concentration of the precious metal solution, and also the flow rate. And by the end of this process, we get like darker spheres in this case. So this is the catalyst that can then be dried, reduced either due to the wet reduction method or the gas reduction with forming acid again, not forming acid, forming gas. And by the end of this process, of course, the product is washed and filtrated, and we obtain these black spherical catalysts. And you can see on the bottom of the slide that the post-return program consists of different steps, and each of these steps can be added or deleted and also adjusted in terms of the process parameters. And this really is the fine-tuning of the catalyst in the end. So, and with all that in mind, if we basically do the variation of all of these three steps, so the two main ingredients and also the synthesis method and the process parameters, we end up, as I said in the beginning, with a huge variety of different kinds of catalysts. As I mentioned, they come in all forms, colors, and sizes. Okay, maybe not colors, because most of the catalysts are grayish or black when they are loaded with precious metal. But I think you get the point. And for example, on the right-hand side, you can see honeycomb structures and mesh wire structures loaded with precious metal. On the left-hand side, we see customized or specialized pellets and extrudates. And in the middle, there are like the typical powder catalysts, granules, spherical catalysts, and so on. And in the following, I want to highlight one of our product portfolio class, which is precious metal on activated carbon powder. So if we get back to our simplified process, instead of using ingredient 1, 2, and a certain synthesis method, we exchange it with activated carbon powder with a colorful platinum precursor solution and perform the wet chemical adsorption method. And in the end, we obtain our platinum on carbon heterogeneous powder catalyst. And if you vary all of these synthesis steps and ingredients, we end up with a portfolio. And this is our Hera Select portfolio on activated carbon. Of course, we have also other portfolios based on other support materials. But as you can see here, we have a lot of examples of different products, especially with platinum and palladium on carbon powder. And the reason why I mention this is that these powder catalysts, or platinum and palladium on activated carbon powder catalysts, are really suitable to catalyze the hydrogenation reaction. But also here, not every hydrogenation reaction is the same. So I think you probably know the typical hydrogenation from alkenes to alkanes, but also from alkynes to alkenes, or to the overhydrogenated product like alkanes again is possible. Also, you can see here the ring hydrogenation and dehydrogenation of aromatic compounds. And for each and every one of these specific selective hydrogenation, another catalyst with another metal or another metal loading can be the most suitable one. And basically you have to do lab screenings for your specific application in order to find the right catalyst for this. And this is also something that we do here at Heraeus. So we not only characterize our products in terms of physical properties like pore volume, pore size distribution, particle size distribution, and specific surface area. But what is probably even more important for our customer is, of course, the final catalytic activity in the end. And here I want to highlight two of our model reaction to test the activity, which is the hydrogenation of nitrobenzene and crotonic acid. So taking a look at our platinum on carbon catalysts, you can see that these catalysts are indeed suitable for the hydrogenation of nitrobenzene. And as you can imagine, if the platinum amount or platinum loading is increased, also the catalytic activity is increased here, as you see with the bars here. So each bar stands for or represents one different catalyst or platinum and carbon catalyst. So, but what is even more interesting here is that we have several different catalysts with a loading of 5% platinum, and all of them show significantly different activities towards the hydrogenation of nitrobenzene. And the reason for this is exactly what I explained before in this process scheme, that by variation of these ingredients, of the synthesis method, and so on, we indeed obtain different catalytic activities in the end. If we move to our palladium on carbon catalysts, we see like similar behavior. So apparently they are somewhat also suitable for the hydrogenation of nitrobenzene, but in addition to that, they are even more suitable for the hydrogenation of crotonic acid. And also here, different types of 5%, 5-8% palladium on carbon show different results because of the reason I mentioned. But to take it one step further, we also developed a bimetallic catalyst, which is 4% palladium and 1% platinum on carbon. And here we see that the activity towards the hydrogenation of nitrobenzene even increases a bit due to the addition of platinum. So also this is possible, not only using one precious metal precursor or salt, but using two of them and basically expand this process. And when it comes to the evaluation of a chemical reaction or chemical process in general, of course, costs play an important role. And in order to decrease the cost, some process steps may be optimized. And one of them is, for example, the filtration. So one main advantage why we use heterogeneous catalysts is because they are easy to separate from the reaction solution and from the product. And if you do so, you can wash the spent catalyst to reuse it again or recycle it, whatever. But we found out, so these are also investigations that we do, we found out that for these carbon powders, the lower the bulk density, the higher the filtration rate is. And if you, for example, had to choose between two catalysts that perform exactly the same in terms of catalytic activity, you of course choose the one that has the higher filtration rate because your filtration process isn't taking that long and your process costs go down in that end. Okay, I'm coming to my last slide where I just want to give you an overview that in addition to our general or common services like toll manufacturing and custom manufacturing, we are always happy and able to start with our partners or customers from scratch, basically. And there we look at the application of our customer and basically jointly develop a catalyst recipe or formula that is optimized. And we, of course, as I mentioned, are always happy to share catalyst samples for lab screening. And this finalized catalyst recipe can then be upscaled and the catalyst can be produced on a bigger scale. And with that, I forward it again to Detlef, who is going to talk a bit about recycling of the catalyst.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. We want to talk a little about the recyclability of precious metal catalysts because we have already heard that the precious metals are quite valuable, and of course it makes a lot of sense that at the end of their lifetime that you recycle them, and this is one of our big activities. We at Heraeus Precious Metal do not only work with the concentrates which come from the mines. We also always work with recycled material, and I want to show you a little bit about this process. We have quite different materials which contain the precious metals. One of the easier cases is probably the precious metal on a carbon catalyst, as Arthur just explained. Then we may have different other grades of industrial catalysts where the carrier may be something which is a ceramic made of alumina, titanium, or whatever. Of course, we have a very big stream which is the three-way catalysts, which are which are equipped, which equip the cars, which have still an internal combustion engine. And we also have the homogeneous catalysts, which are dissolved in the solution, which are maybe a little bit more complicated to extract, but where the precious metal concentration is also very high. And when we get back these materials, of course, one of the important steps is always the sampling and the incineration. Most of the times, we will first incinerate, let's say, a homogeneous catalyst, for instance, or a catalyst on carbon, to get to a metal-rich ash. This ash will be sampled, it will be homogenized and sampled, and this sample will be the basis of the settlement. Of course, you as our customers and we as a supplier, both sides are very interested how much precious metal is there in, because that's in the end which decides how much precious metal we can credit back to you. And after these, let's say, preparation steps, the material may be treated by smelting or by smelting and converting. That means first the precious metal is extracted with so-called collector metals. Most of the time this is iron. So there you get rid of all the ceramics. And the second step is converting. Converting means that you get rid of all the iron then again and get to a concentrate which contains the precious metals. And then there follows quite a few of classical wet chemical steps: precipitation, distillation, recrystallization, electrolysis, whatever. It's like the classical inorganic separation steps that you maybe have learned in the lab when you started studying chemistry. So this is, but in this case, this is all done with the precious metals. And by combining all these steps, we can separate again all 8 precious metals. And what is maybe important to understand, we do not recycle the catalyst as such. We recycle the precious metal. That means precious metal coming from recycled catalysts or coming from mine concentrates. You cannot distinguish them, because both they are refined to a purity of 99.99%, and so they are interchangeable. They are pristine new precious metals. And the output of these metals can then be in the form of bars or grains when you want to have really the metal. You can also have the sponge. The sponge is a finely divided powder. Or, of course, you can also directly go to a chemical, to a salt or to a metal organic complex, which you want to use for your next run of your synthesis. And this closes the loops. So that means you bring back the spent catalyst. We make the new compound for you, which we want to use again, or we give you the metal. And you only have to cover for the losses. That means you do not have to buy the whole amount of precious metal every time. You only need to cover the losses, which are maybe, I'm making up fantasy numbers now, maybe 10% you need to add up, or 5% you need to add up to get to the full volume of precious metals that you need. And this makes a lot of sense economically. I think this is easy to see. We have here something which has a really high value. We have fresh material coming from the mines. We have recycled material, which we really need to fulfill all the needs of the market. We make new products again. We have our precious metal trading in between. And you can see the recycling rate is already quite good. It's around 30%. But of course, we always aim to push it even higher, because there's also an ecological reason for recycling precious metal. Precious metals which come from mines usually have a quite high CO2 footprint. This is related to the huge amount of electricity you need to extract the precious metal from the ore. Most of the mines are in South Africa. South Africa, electricity still runs mostly on carbon. Of course, this is all starting to change, but it will still take some time. So what you can see here, the CO2 footprint of the recycled materials in green is drastically better than the CO2 footprint of the freshly mined material. And of course, you cannot fulfill all the market needs by only recycled metals, but we offer for customers who have a special need, we can offer certain streams which contain then only recycled metals and which have a very good carbon footprint, depending on the application that our customers have. Yeah, and with this, I come to the end of our presentation, but I think we still have time for some questions. You can contact Arthur for heterogeneous catalysts or myself for the homogeneous catalysts. And with this, I thank you for your attention. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Detlef. Thanks a lot, Arthur. Yeah, with that, I wanted to motivate the audience to again use the chat function to provide some questions. Also here, first question that came in, will the presentation be provided? Yes, it will be. So now would be the time, to make a screenshot here of this QR code. And with that, it will be downloadable later on. And also the recording of the session, of course, will also be made available to all the participants of this webinar. Yeah, a few questions came in. Maybe Detlef, starting with you. Are you producing the mentioned homogeneous catalyst only in Germany or also globally? What about India? Is the first question.
Okay. Well, yeah, basically we have a global footprint. Let's say our headquarters is of course still Hanau, where we produce the homogeneous catalyst, but we also have a site in the US. We have a site in Ireland where we also produce homogeneous catalysts. And the question related to India, in India we have a joint venture, and there we are beginning now to make the homogeneous catalyst there as well. So the process has been started there as well.
Okay. Second question, is there maybe a simple one, but also a tricky one? Is there one main seller that you sell to all the FineChem and Pharma customers in your segment?
Well, let's say that's really a tricky one. Let's say our main seller is the so-called Karstedt's catalyst, which is used for the curing of silicone. So maybe this is not exactly what this community here is looking for. But let's say the main seller for FineChem and pharmaceuticals, I would say it's palladium acetyl acetonate. And this is also something where a phosphine is added in situ, and where one of our customers really runs a huge technical process for the making of octene, which is used as a softener for polyethylene. So this is a real huge technical process which runs regularly on palladium acetyl acetonate.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, recommendations on the recycling of homogeneous catalyst waste streams?
Well, it always depends on their physical nature. Of course, they may not be in the nicest form. Yeah, you may have something like a sludge, like a sump or whatever. But let's say, if possible, the first step is an incineration step, which gets rid of all the organics, which normally transforms then the residue also in something which is nicely to handle, which is a dry ash. And so let's say the first step in many cases would probably be an incineration to make it just easier, treatable, and start the wet chemical process from there.
Okay. And for the collection systems of our customers, do you know typical materials they are using, like what, resin bed or activated carbon bed or?
Well, there's different ways, of course. When you still have some precious metal left in your solution, of course you can use scavengers, or you can use activated carbon as a scavenger. So really to catch all the precious metal atoms which still might be there. And yeah, this is then of course gathered as well together with the main volume, which is in the sludges and in the sump of the reaction.
Understood. Okay. Looking at the next questions, I was also asked to move to the last slide while we further talk on some questions, because we hope that we will meet many of you at the CPHI this year, and we will kind of host a German festival in Spain, Barcelona, then ultimately. So there will be a little Oktoberfest. And yeah, if someone wants to get invited, to this event, just reach out. So we will be exhibiting together with our colleagues from the pharmaceutical space. And yeah, as said, if some of you are around, we can either help you getting a ticket, and we would gladly invite you here to our event. So please do not forget to inform us. Getting back to the questions, Arthur, one question came in on heterogeneous catalysts because you have mentioned samples. Do you provide free of charge sample boxes for screening? Was one of the questions.
Okay, so the short answer to this is yes, we do. Maybe the long version is, okay, it depends on the amount that is shipped. Of course, so one approach in order to do screenings at our customer side, or if the customer wants to do screening with us, is to provide, first of all, catalysts from our standard portfolio. So catalysts that are commercially available, and providing several samples of this in small amounts is of course possible, also free of charge.
Okay. One question which is also of particular interest for me, because we talked a little bit about this when we also visited Chemspec in Basel this year. Do you see people moving from batch processes to continuous processes? And if yes, is the catalyst technology changing?
Yeah, this is something I also tried to mention in one of the slides. So the answer also to this is yes. So especially for new developments, new processes that our customers are building up, they directly move or develop a process that is continuous or in flow. So this, in terms of sustainability and also for sustainable products, this is apparently the way to go in the industry right now, or at least the trend is rising. The interest is increasing in this area. And also the catalyst technology is of course completely different, because you can't just put a powder catalyst that you used before in your continuous reaction setup because of like pressure drop issues and other limitations that you have there. So we have to develop a new catalyst on a shaped support.
There's also interest in the carbon microspheres that have been introduced. What is the average particle size distribution of the carbon microspheres?
So I can't tell you directly the distribution, but I can mention the sizes that we have. I mean, they are called microspheres, so they have to be hopefully smaller than 1 millimeter. And this is also what they are. So we have like different sizes. One of our common sizes is 450 microns and 250 microns, because they are like really small spheres and also specialized. So the production of these are really specialized. They also have a quite narrow not pore size, but particle size distribution.
Okay. And then there are two more general questions on precious metal overall. So one of the questions basically was how many ounces of PGM are used in pharma applications in 2023 and in 2028. And if you agree, I can I can maybe help with an answer on this. Pharma, compared to the big markets, and big markets for the PGMs are definitely automotive. And for example, when we talk about platinum, also to a large amount, jewelry are rather small. So depending on the different research houses which are out there, and Heraeus is also cooperating with a UK-based company called SFA Oxford. And by the way, I think we also need to make some advertisement for the weekly precious metal newsletter that the trading team is sending out every Monday. But basically, they see moderate growth in the pharma and medical space. But for example, I only know the figure of platinum because recently the platinum standard has been published. We talk about 300,000 ounces of platinum that goes into pharmaceutical and medical applications, which compared to a market of more than 200 tons, for sure is not the main driver of this metal. And this goes a little bit in relation to a second question that came in. the price of palladium dropped in the last year. Do you forecast the prices going up again? I'm asking because in the last year, the PD costs went up. More platinum catalysts were tested in consequence, for example, in heterogeneous hydrogenations. Absolutely true. So to be honest with you, we also realized this trend, and at certain levels, the palladium price has been a factor of 4 compared to platinum. So there are obviously good economic advantages, moving from a palladium-based system to a platinum-based system. Now, palladium prices have come down quite significantly, and the main driver is weakening economy, and particularly weakening economy in the automotive sector. And therefore, it will really be dependent how automotive is going to develop in the future, also with increasing share of electrification, for example, throughout the share of cars sold. Even more significantly, I think we have seen this for the specialty metal rhodium, which is mainly used for NOx abatement. And therefore, the metal has jumped up to more than $30,000 troy ounce. So really, really, really expensive. It's now only 10% of that. And therefore, we have also seen that people have shifted. And of course, we also do not have the one crystal ball, that will tell us the platinum and palladium price in 1 to 3 years from now. For example, in platinum, people have high hopes in the hydrogen economy overall for the use in fuel cell and electrolyzer technology, and palladium here is not so much well studied. So I think the one thing that I can recommend, we speak to our experts on the trading floor every year. They publish a forecast, and this can be also found on our website. And there, let's say, also our opinion on development of precious metal prices is documented. Yeah. Question. 30% recycling is great, but how does it compare to the industry? Are you carrying out more or below the industry average, and what is the target in the coming years? I think here we can answer in a way that the 30%. So this is the industry average, that has been presented. Yeah. Heraeus itself, it's the largest refiner of precious metals globally, particularly when we talk about the 5 big PGMs: platinum, palladium, rhodium, ruthenium, and iridium. And ultimately, you have to see that also, as we described, that many customers already operate in so-called loop systems with us. They get a catalyst, and once the catalyst is spent, not meeting the performance requirements, poisoned maybe, they send the catalyst back. And so you get a service out of one hand, ultimately. And here, of course, we are constantly striving to increase the amount of secondary material, because also, as we have shown, the CO2 footprint is significantly lowered. And also more and more people have awareness for life cycle assessments, CO2 footprint calculations of products, and there are obviously advantages in using recycled metal only. But will we go up to 100% share of precious metals? For sure not, because there's just not enough recycling material out there in the world. So we will still be dependent on the mines, particularly in South Africa. I guess with that, last chance to make the download. Last chance to take a screenshot from Detlef's and Arthur's contact information here on this slide. If not, you will also find it on the website. We appreciate your time. We are thankful that you stayed with us here for the full hour. We hope you found the content of interest for you, and we look forward starting new collaborations and continuing already existing ones, because I see also some existing contacts that we're already dealing with. So in the name of my colleagues, in the name of the company, thanks a lot for joining our webinar. Have a wonderful afternoon if you're in Europe, or have a wonderful end of your morning when you may be overseas in the US. All the best. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.